Okay, people, so, here it is. You see it's snowing. Lots of snow. Do you see that? This is the part of the day we wake. You see? Looks nice, right? And, it's nice and, you know, furry, looks like diamonds, but it's actually not, actually ice. So, like, I'm just walking to my snowman. Willie's just climbing around there. Here he is, my snowman. I know, he doesn't have a face yet, but soon. Bye.
Okay, people, so now it's February 15th, 2021. Amari is on his chair. They call this a tomato chair. Okay, his wheelchair will be going in here. So what I'm trying to say is, people, if Amari can sit in this chair, and he can sit in a wheelchair, okay, and he can sit in a stroller, and he can sit in this other little chair that he has, or any other chair that I may or may not put him in, okay, he can sit on a toilet. Okay, now, we know I'm having problems with this camera, so if it does whatever, it does whatever. I've dropped it once or twice, and it's an old camera. Okay, I don't have money to go off and buy a camera right now, okay? We've been through this with my past videos when I used to have to hit the camera to make the camera work. I don't have to hit this one, but I might have to turn it off and turn it back on. So basically what I'm doing here is, people, in light of what's going on with the healthcare clinic that I deal with, okay, and because it's getting closer and closer to the time of serving my government with this notice of civil claim that specifically calls out illegal organ harvesting in the province of British Columbia, Canada, I stand my ground. Okay, people, I stand my ground, right? You know, it's rocking a lot of comfortable boats when it comes to that underground economy and the laundering of big money through the illegal sale of organs. Okay, that are being harvested en masse in the province of British Columbia, Canada, through the healthcare system, aka hospitals, as the taxpayers pay for it, okay? All right. So in light of that, I'm probably pissing off a lot of people, okay? Powerful people that can, you know, go down into the trenches like clinics and you know, social service safety net providers and those kind of things, and say, you know, this individual Judy Chorney is causing a ruckus. You know, she's you know, a troublemaker, and we don't want to be exposed, or we don't want to be held to account. We don't even want to have to try and explain ourselves to worm ourselves out of this accusation of illegal organ harvesting. Even though all the legislation points in the direction that it's quite easy to do, being that parents and, you know, those types of people cannot access medical records, can't access the autopsy reports, can't get independent autopsies done on their loved ones after the fact of whatever happened once the healthcare system gets a hold of their dead bodies, okay? It's like dead bodies, once you're dead, you have no rights, people. You lose all your rights. They take them away from you in the legislation, okay? Because they're the ones with the duty of care of the dead body, okay? And there are rules around that, but they're not all being followed when it comes to white-collar criminal activity, okay? It's like they make their own rules, and when you get close to exposing what they're doing, they come in and, you know, they find different ways to set you up, basically, for failure so that you won't succeed at exposing them and getting justice for your loved ones, okay? Because that's the end game. I want justice for my family. They don't want to be exposed, okay, as a consorted effort, as a group, because it takes more than one to set up that network where somebody dies, the coroner comes in, or the police come in, or the ambulance services come in, they scoop up on the body, they go off and they basically do whatever they want with that body without being held to account, people. Okay? And most people just not going to fight to find out the truth. Never mind demand justice and make a way for other people so that they can have justice, so that living human beings aren't at risk to be exploited to end up like ShaMay ended up, or Ciera, or Amari for that matter. Okay. So this is the gist of why I'm talking about what I'm talking about right now. Because I'm in a very dangerous time in my life. The closer I get to court, the harder they're going to push back, and they're going to find any which way to do it. Whether they do it consciously, knowingly, because they're in on it and they're participating with the actual gang stalking and the targeting of my family, right? To cut off the head of the mother so that, you know, there's no follow-up, right? To hold them to account, okay? Or whether they're doing it unconsciously through a beehive mentality, just doing as they're told. Shut up, don't ask questions, because if you do, you're going to lose your job. Do you really want to rock boats, end up like Miss Chorney, be targeted, right? Be ostracized from society, lose everything that you have because you spoke out against what she basically is accusing us of, right? Or they're being paid off to stay quiet and to participate. Okay? Bottom line is, the Hornets are mad. Okay? The Hornets are mad. They're getting madder. Right? And they're networking between themselves because they want to keep that underground economy alive. They want those dead bodies, coming in uninterrupted, right along with being able to do whatever they want, when they want, how they want to do it, without ever being held to account. So that's what I'm up against. Okay? So anyway, through it all, right, I have a disabled child, people. I don't have a family doctor anymore, myself personally. I can take my grandchildren to the same clinic that's basically ostracized me, right, and has made my life 100 times harder by denying me access to my daughter's medical files by saying, take it to court, take it to court. My boss said, take it to court. Okay. Right? You might as well tell me to go get a lawyer that I can't get. So even if I take it to court, I ain't gonna fucking win, because that's just a whole new level of corruption that I have to deal with, people. And they know it. And that's why it's a consorted group that are working together to formulate a system so that bodies can be harvested, whether through legal donation, with their honor walks, to fool the masses into thinking that everything is legitimate, right? Or through illegal organ harvesting, which is a whole lot bigger and more profitable than anything legal could ever be. All right. So because of Amari's situation, I am forced to basically to participate with service providers, right, that have good intentions, because that's what they went to school for, and that's what they train for, and that's what they get paid for. Whether they get caught up in the drama of illegal organ harvesting, whether directly being involved with it or indirectly being involved with it. In other words, if you know anything, don't say nothing, because as soon as you say something, you're going down. Like a John Hart. You're going down. Okay? So nobody's going to say shit. Right? And if they're in a position of authority in terms of a healthcare service provider, through a network of different services, right? And their boss or their overlord, directs them to make it harder for me, people, right? So that I get shut up. Right? So that I get ostracized, so that I get criminalized, so I get penalized, so I get a defamation of character and slander and all this other shit. Anything to distract away from what's going on in the community en masse through thousands of dead bodies that are not being accounted for when it comes to independent autopsies, audit reviews of medical files, whether it's through pharmacare fraud in terms of overbilling hospitals for 9 days for a dead body to lay up on a fucking hospital bed after it was illegally embalmed to make it look like it was alive so that everybody was fooled into thinking that it was, just so they could cover up the fact that they took out her organs within the first 7 hours of her body showing up at the fucking hospital dead. Okay, that is the core issue here, right? So because I say that somehow makes me irrational. That somehow makes me, I guess you could say, paranoid, or psychoses, or, I live in a fantasy. But yet, at the end of the day, British Columbia, Canada, and the government is so in bed with the Chinese Communist Party people. Not to mention that it's the Chinese, in part, that are buying up BC in housing and the properties, right? Taking over. They own, the Chinese people own a Chinese company that has a ill reputation, okay? Got a green light from the federal government to purchase about 50% of all long-term care facilities in the province of British Columbia, Canada. And it's already been documented because it became privatized and it became a for-profit industry when it came to looking after the old people. The services that were being provided to the old people by this Chinese company was negligent in comparison as if it was the government providing those services to the elderly through care homes and assisted living facilities, okay? But that's business, so somehow it makes it right. It's okay for the government to partner up with a freaking political party that's a communist party that harvests organs illegally, right, en masse, as they lock up tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of innocent human beings for having a difference of opinion or practice a different religion, right, that doesn't necessarily coincide with a satanic fucking agenda when it comes to the Chinese Communist Party wanting to take over the world. And for whatever reason, my government likes to do business with them. Okay? So, with that said, it's not unfathomable that if they're going to pillage organs in China from the poor, from the ones being locked up, from the ones being gang-stalked, from the ones being silenced, even though they've done nothing wrong, but yet they own half the freaking care facilities in British Columbia, Canada, and not to mention all the landmass that they've purchased over the years, right? You don't think that illegal organ harvesting isn't happening here? Yeah, it is, people. That's why they call it an underground economy, okay? Doesn't mean that I'm suffering from anything other than I might be a little crazy for standing my ground, because I'll never win, because there's too many of them. The predator class is too large. It's too intertwined within the public union sector for me to get anywhere outside of having a voice that hasn't been yet silenced. So, I'm gonna keep this short, okay? Because I'm really trying to stay positive on this, people, in terms of, sharpening my game. I've already started to read up on I guess you can say I'm getting into legislation. I'm pulling in my head. Patient Property Act, right? Hospital Act, right? Those kind of acts. Criminal Code of Canada, duty of care, breach of trust, right? As I'm writing down again what I'm facing and have been facing and continue to face when I go into public union sector environments, whether they're contracted out like a clinic or whether it's an actual hospital or whether it's a service provider, right? And having to deal with these individuals who, some of them indirectly or directly, have like injured my grandchildren, in this case Amari, through negligence through an extended birth process where it was documented that his heartbeat was going down so low and was staying down and not coming back up, that was the excuse to do the emergency C-section, even though they had a 5-day period to freaking deal with that problem before it occurred. And then had the audacity to try and accuse ShaMay of doing drugs, even though it was their drugs in her system, as they continued to ignore key issues in the medical files as they were coming in through, well, did you know, like, yeah, she was dead. But go get a lawyer because Canada is corrupt. And now I'm there. I'm in the court without a lawyer. I have to fight to get my own daughter's medical files as they're citing privacy when in fact there was no privacy, people, because all those individuals that are working within the healthcare system aren't working to protect ShaMay's privacy. They're working to protect the freaking fact that her organs were illegally harvested, and they don't want that information getting out. So what's the best method to slow down that or cut it off at the freaking is to attack me and to set me up for failure? And they do it insidiously, with or without realizing what they're doing, whether they're being paid off or not, or whether they're actually involved. I don't know. I just know it's a concerted effort between the public union sector as a whole. It doesn't mean that each and every union member is corrupt and is capitalizing off of the death of innocent human beings or off of the injury of innocent human beings or families. It just means that there's a problem in there that needs to be fixed. Whether it gets fixed or not, I don't know. Considering what our governments are doing to us now, people. Okay, through that communist agenda under Agenda 20, Agenda 30, Agenda 2050, right? You know, with their Event 201, and then all of a sudden we've got a pandemic that materializes where it bankrupts half the province, as those people that are losing their lives and their livelihoods and their families are being gang-stalked and set up for failure, just like my family has been. Right? And continues to be, in my opinion, the closer I get to holding my government to account for what they've done to my family as a whole over a progression of years. And they're ruthless about it, people. They're ruthless. And ShaMay is testament to that. So is Ciera. Well, we can say Uncle John. And we can even say Amari and Andre. Not to mention what I've gone through, continue to have to go through. I'm being forced to go through, right? What my other 3 remaining live children are having to go through emotionally, psychologically, physiologically, right? Physically. So anyway, Amari is has his network of support workers. Okay, fair enough, right? It's not their fault, right? They're at arm's length, supposedly, right, from the corruption in this province when it relates directly to the bad apples within the public union sector, okay? And in this situation, this is a just a summary of a eating skills, right? Eating skills. Because children with cerebral palsy, many of them are on feeding tubes. Actually, a fair amount of them aren't thriving as well as Amari is. But for some reason, I always feel like I'm on pins and needles with these individuals, because before they look for anything really good, they're always looking for that something bad. And of course, being who I am and what I'm doing and what I'm up against, you know, that would be standard practice, because again, it's a concerted effort, right? You know, to silence me, so that the business as usual in the underground economy can go uninterrupted, right? Because it all boils down to what's inside their portfolios, not what's inside our portfolios, because we're not allowed to have portfolios. We're not allowed to have assets. They are, because, you know, they're working. They're the essential workers. They're the government employees, so they're back up on that pedestal. All right, so anyway, I read over what, you know, this, because everything's on Zoom. Right? All the buildings, they shut down all the buildings. So everything's been on Zoom. And now, I specifically showed you Amari sitting in this chair, to which you just heard him giggle and laugh. You can hear him playing, which clearly shows that he's happy to be in it, people. He's happy. If he can sit in the tomato chair, if he can sit in that chair, if he can sit in your lap, right? If he can, right, sit wherever else he sits, he can sit on a toilet. Here's the thing, though. The industry as a whole, and I'm going to use old people as an example here, okay? They don't like to take them to the toilet, because it's easier for them to leave them in diapers. It just makes their work easier, okay? Go into my videos, you hear me talking about Uncle John. So, for Amari, though, using the toilet is better for him with gravity, in terms of allowing his body to behave in a manner that it should act while defecating or urinating. Well, not so much urinating, but definitely defecating, having a poop, right? Thing is, they don't want to put it down as a milestone, as a success story, this is the direction we want to go in with Amari, and encourage the ongoing procedure of putting him on a toilet regularly, regardless of whether you use, you know, a little stool softener, or maybe you might have to use a little bit of a suppository to help him, because it's, you know, it comes and goes, right? Some days, no problem. Other days, he's a little more constipated for whatever reason. So, you know, you might have to use a little suppository, but he's still sitting on the toilet, which ultimately, at the end of the day, allows more of, you know, crap to come out of his system, and that's what you want. If he was laying down all the time, I think we'd have more serious problems, right? I really do. So, you know, I noticed that this individual wrote down that, you know, he gets his stool softener, I don't know what she wrote here, 2 to 3 times a week, which I try, with just a little bit, right, in his milk. Or, if need be, you know, depending on what's going on, I may use a tiny bit of a suppository just to get things going. But outside of that, I use this toilet quite regularly, and honestly, I think he's already had a poo in here. Okay? So I'm just giving him a little extra time to finish, because sometimes he has, and then he has a little bit more. I mean, he's not fussing, so he's not in distress. He's happy, he's playing, he's giggling, and it works. But there is absolutely no reference to it in this freaking summary, people. And it makes me mad. It makes me mad, because one day I'm not going to be here. Right? And whoever gets him next, no, he's too heavy. I don't want to put him on a toilet. I don't want to have to watch him. We'll just leave him in a diaper and let him shit in his diaper. It's easier for me just to go clean up his diaper. right? When I get around to changing it. When I get around to changing it. Okay? You got half these elderly sitting up in these private for-profit freaking care homes, right, with minimal services because they're not held to account by the government to increase, you know, their allotted time with the elderly in terms of this is what the elderly need, this is how many hours a day it's going to take to take care of the elderly. So they just forfeit on actually, you know, walking them to a toilet and helping them on and helping them off and, you know, and right, once, twice a day, you know, that's important, people. That's so important, but they're not doing it. And I feel like by not acknowledging it in here, in this letter, and this is the point of this video, by not acknowledging that I go out of my way to do this all the time, people, all the fucking time. And I can't stress it enough that this is so, so important. This person who wrote this failed to write it down, that is a milestone for Amari, and that it works, and that it should be continued on and encouraged, because once I'm gone, they're going to completely fucking ignore it and do it their way. And in other words, leave him in a diaper, and when we get around to changing him, we'll change him. Because it's never been in their files, people, their files, that sitting on a toilet actually works for him. And maybe I'm being oversensitive, hypersensitive. I wouldn't call it paranoid because I know how they operate. I know what I'm up against. I've been through it enough times. Am I saying this individual purposely neglected to write it in that he does well on a toilet and it should be something that should be encouraged and regularly implemented into his whole life? Not just while with me? Right? And it's not there. It's not there. So that tells me that if something happens to me and wherever he goes, that next caregiver is not obligated or will be held. Yeah, he's pushing again. He's pushing right now. So this is good, right? They're not obligated, right, to do this. Because there's nothing in the fucking reports in his history to suggest that it even fucking works for him. Instead, they want to promote their softening stool substance and perhaps a little suppository once in a while in a diaper. No mention of a toilet. Absolutely none. Simply because he's disabled. And in their mind, it's unnecessary. Like with the old people. They're old. They don't need to be walked to the toilet. They can simply shit their pants, and when, you know, we're ready, we'll come and change them. That's a fear, people. That's a fear that I have for Amari, that's how he's going to end up being treated. And he's going to be crying out for Nana, and I won't be there to help him. Because we live in a very selfish society where it's me, right? Why should you lift him up and take him to a toilet if you don't have to? Because it's easier for you just to go in there and change his diaper. And then wonder why he's got a fucking diaper rash because maybe you left him sitting in it for 5 hours. Who knows? Because that's how corrupt our society is. Amari doesn't get... Tisha says, don't you use cream on Amari? You know, like, what's that cream called? Persistent cream or anything? I say, no. Why should I? He doesn't need it. He never gets a diaper rash. Right? So... But if he was made to lay in a diaper all the time, never sit on a toilet, and that individual decides just to let him lay in shit, what do you think is going to happen? And they're not going to think to put him on a toilet because why should they? It's never been fucking written down that he does well with it. Because I'm being sabotaged, whether knowingly or unknowingly, simply because I stand up for my family and including my dead children. And I am going to hold my government to account for bringing in illegal organ harvesting into this freaking province. Right? And then doing nothing about it. So that's the first thing. So the other thing is, she wrote that Amari generally, she used the word generally, which is very elusive. It's kind of an ambiguous word, right? Because it can lead you down different paths, okay? It's not precise or concise. It can veer off to over here, or it can veer off to over here, depending on your mood and what you want to project over a period of time with your writing in terms of suggestions or subliminal messaging or whatever. She wrote down that generally Amari is healthy. No, it's not generally, people. Amari is healthy. Okay? Just like he does better on a toilet. That's a fact. Okay? It's also a fact that Amari is healthy. Now, the only thing that I can think of why she did it this way, in terms of generally healthy, is because she asked, like, right? And I'm like, well, he's had, like, maybe 2 colds, a couple colds. But that's because he was required to go to the Surrey Memorial Hospital for an ear test. So he went, right? Tisha took him to the hospital for an ear test. A couple days later, he got a little cold. Oh, wow. Does that mean he's unhealthy because he got a cold, people? It wasn't anything major. It was a little snot, right? You know, and right? And it was a cold. He picked up a little cold virus. It wasn't anything of worry. So we mentioned it, that he's got a couple little colds. Nothing major, right? And they stem from when he goes out to appointments. Went for his eye appointment, right? He's in and about in society, right? Picked up a little cold virus, right? He's had like 2 little sniffles in the last 2 years. Like, what the hell is that? That's generally healthy? No, that's healthy, people. It's healthy to have a cold. It's healthy to come into contact with little viruses and get little colds to build up your immune system. Okay? So, just by her using the word generally healthy, like I said, can lead it into 2 different directions at the whim of the writer at any point in the future. Okay? So, now, just because of what's happening in my life, and I see it crumbling down around me, people, I really do, okay, I am going to take the time to write this individual, to put it on her file, that there needs to be further explanation in regards to what works for Amari's bowel movements, and a toilet is one of the number 1 key factors with the, what is it called? Stool softener, secondary, with the suppository as a 3rd option. But number 1 is the toilet. And if he can sit in a tomato chair, in a wheelchair, or any other sitting position, whether in your lap, on the couch, he has one of those baby bunting chairs he likes to sit in, right? Because Amari is mobile. He likes to move. Oh, yeah. Well, we know he's floppy. He's been floppy. He's been floppy ever since he was freaking bored. So there's no news flash there, right? It doesn't hurt him. That's just the way he is, okay? I have to try and give him a little more structure with the toilet, though, right? Because he's got to focus on what he's doing. So I have to write this individual and ask them to put on the file my response in regards to the toilet, and be adamant that she promote that if something should happen to me in an untimely manner, especially in light of who I'm fighting with right now in my life and why, right? And the second thing is she needs to remove the word generally because he's been healthy, people. Having a cold doesn't warrant a deduction in a health status. Okay? Right? You either are healthy or you're not. Amari is healthy. Having a cold, boosting up his immune system, made him more healthier. He's vibrant. He's active. He's communicative. He's getting stronger. He's aware of his surroundings. He wants to explore. He can move his body around to the best of his ability, and he's gaining strength and confidence. And he's healthy, period. So I'm going to have to write on those two subjects. I know I'm overreacting, people, right? I'm being oversensitive, right? You know, I'm hypersensitive, right? You know, I'm being, I'm exaggerating on the facts. It's all in how you interpret those facts, though, right? So I just wanted to point that out. So now that I'm back in with legislations and freaking acts and statutes and the Criminal Code of Canada and mandates and rules and regulations and all this other shit, as I'm being gang stalked again by the healthcare system, you can't tell me that if I go back to that clinic, that the minute I walk in that door, I'm not being targeted by all those staff members that work in that environment that don't want to be involved with the exposure of illegal organ harvesting happening in the province of British Columbia, Canada, not to mention medical kidnapping, the illegal detainment of the elderly, the illegal drugging of the elderly, the illegal transport of the elderly, right? Shady cops and all this other shit. Okay? No. They're going to make it hard for me, people, just like they've now made it hard for me. Take us to court. Take us to court. Go get a lawyer. Take us to court. Well, here, come into the office now and let us give you good quality health care because it's the duty of our care. It was the duty of our care to look after you after we basically told you to fuck off. And then send in the something with their ambiguous, he's pushing again. See, this is what I mean. He needs to sit and just do, right? So it takes time for it to come. And when it comes, boy, it's better for him. He feels better, right? I feel better. Everybody's happy, right? We're happy. And it makes him healthier because that shit's just not sitting inside of him, being blocked up in a chair. Okay? What's the difference between a chair and a toilet? Because if he's pushing and he's on a toilet, it can come out. If he's pushing and he's in a fucking chair, he can't fucking push it out, people. Common sense. So I'm going to ask them to write it down in the file. That's the number one fucking thing to do with Amari, being that Amari is not on a feeding tube and can't move. Amari is blessed. Considering what happened to him and his mother, and even his father, Amari is blessed. And he shouldn't be made to suffer in a diaper because nobody wants to take time to put him on a fucking toilet. Because it was never written down that he could even use one. So, I know, I'm overreacting now. Just write the letter, be polite, be diplomatic, right? You know, no, they're not mind readers. You know, they don't know, right? That's why you write the letter, to inform them. Amari is not generally healthy. Amari is healthy. 2 colds over a period of 2 years doesn't warrant him not being healthy. in a general sense. Anyway, it's just more to do. That's all. It's just more to do, people. And this is just the beginning, I would suspect.